The stars do not remember. This is what Vethsari Kendros thought as she stood at the observation port of her wounded vessel, watching the cold light of distant suns pierce through the void. Those ancient fires had burned for billions of years before the Caliph Dominion rose from the mud of their homeworld. They would continue burning long after her people became dust and memory, scattered across the cosmic winds like the ashes of forgotten civilizations before them. She was old, even by Caliph standards. 417 cycles she had lived, and in that time she had witnessed the rise and fall of lesser species, the birth of new colonies, the slow expansion of an empire that once seemed eternal. The Dominion had stood for 11,000 years. 11,000 years of culture, philosophy, art, science. 11,000 years of carefully cultivated superiority.
3 months. That was all it had taken for the Vorn hegemony to reduce everything to ruin.
Vethsari's hands trembled as she pressed them against the cold viewport. Her reflection stared back at her. Elongated features, silver-gray skin marked with the ceremonial lines of her station, eyes that had once held the proud certainty of a high adjudicator. Now those eyes held only exhaustion, fear she refused to name, the hollow weight of loss so vast it had become meaningless. Somewhere behind her, the bridge crew worked in silence. What remained of them? 17 souls aboard a ship designed for 300. The others were gone, some to the void, some to the Vorn's consumption, some to wounds that their depleted medical supplies could not treat.
High Adjudicator.
The voice belonged to Consul Ferex, her second. He approached with the careful deference of one who knew his superior was holding herself together through will alone.
Speak, Vethsari said, not turning from the stars.
We have completed the navigation calculations. The system ahead, it is confirmed to be Terran space. Terran space. Vethsari closed her eyes. The irony was not lost on her. 2 centuries ago, when the Dominion's survey fleets had first discovered the young species called humanity, she had been among the council members who reviewed the assessment reports. She remembered the dismissive laughter in the chamber, their history soaked in internal conflict. Quarantine them, she had said then. Let them mature or destroy themselves. Either outcome serves the Dominion's interests. And so the borders had been drawn. Terran space, a small, unremarkable territory on the galactic fringe, was marked with warning beacons and patrol routes. The humans were not contacted, not welcomed, not considered worth the effort.
Now, Vethsari's broken ship limped toward those same borders, carrying the desperate survivors of a civilization that had once considered itself beyond the reach of any threat.
"How long until we cross into their territory?" she asked.
At our current speed, 7 hours.
And the Vorn pursuit force?
Therex hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. 12 hours behind us, perhaps less. Their scouts are faster than our damaged engines can outrun. Vethsari nodded slowly. 12 hours. Half a day to live, unless the humans granted them sanctuary. Unless the species she had dismissed 200 years ago decided that the lives of 17 Caliph refugees were worth protecting. She had no right to ask. She knew this. But she would ask anyway, because the alternative was extinction. "Set course for the nearest human station," she said, "and prepare a diplomatic frequency. We will introduce ourselves properly." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. The human station emerged from the darkness like a wound in the void. But Sari had expected something crude.
The intelligence reports from 2 centuries ago had described human architecture as functional at best, utilitarian structures of metal and composite that served purpose without elegance. She had imagined rust and patchwork repairs, the aesthetic poverty of a young species still learning to crawl among the stars. What she found was different. The station was not beautiful, not in the way Caliph structures were beautiful, with their flowing organic curves and living bioluminescent surfaces. But there was something about it that unsettled her, a density of purpose, a weight of intent in every angle and plate. No wasted space, no ornamentation. Every component existed because it needed to exist, and nothing more.
It reminded her of a weapon.
"We are being hailed," Therex reported, his voice carefully neutral. On screen, the display flickered, and Vethsari found herself looking at a human face for the first time in her long life.
The creature was smaller than she expected, soft-looking, with pale skin and dark hair cropped short. Its eyes, brown, she noted, like dried soil, studied her with an expression she could not read. There was no hostility in that gaze, no fear, no surprise.
Only patience. Unidentified vessel. This is Commander Sarah Chen of Waypoint Station 7. You have entered United Terran Republic space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions.
The language was galactic common, spoken with an accent that Vethsari found unexpectedly pleasant. The human's tone was professional, controlled, almost gentle. Vethsari straightened despite her exhaustion. Old habits died hard. "I am High Adjudicator Vethsari Kendros of the Caliph Dominion. My vessel carries 17 survivors of—" She paused, the words catching in her throat. "We are refugees, Commander. We request sanctuary." The human's expression did not change. Refugees from what, High Adjudicator? From extinction. Silence stretched between them. Vethsari watched the human's face for any reaction, surprise, satisfaction, contempt. She found none. The brown eyes simply held hers, waiting. "Your vessel shows significant damage," Commander Chen said finally. "Are you in immediate need of medical assistance?" "We have wounded, yes." "Are you being pursued?" The question was asked calmly, as if the answer was merely administrative curiosity. "Yes," Vethsari admitted. "A Vorn hegemony pursuit force. They are approximately 12 hours behind us." Again, no visible reaction. The human simply nodded once. "Understood. Proceed to Docking Bay 7. Medical teams will meet you upon arrival. I will meet with you personally to discuss your situation." The transmission ended. Vethsari stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Beside her, Therex shifted uncomfortably. "That was unexpected," he said. "What did you expect?" "I do not know. Questions, demands, conditions." He paused. Anything other than calm acceptance. Vethsari thought of the human's eyes, that patient, measuring gaze that had weighed her without judgment and found her, what, worthy of assistance? Useful? Pitiful? "Neither do I," she admitted. "Neither do I." The docking bay was clean. This should not have surprised Vethsari. Cleanliness was a basic expectation of any civilized species, but after 3 months of running, of hiding in debris fields and dead systems, of watching her ship slowly decay around her, the simple sight of orderly metal floors and functioning lighting felt like a physical relief. Human medical personnel moved among her people with quiet efficiency. They did not stare at the Caliph's alien features.
They did not flinch at wounds that had festered too long without proper treatment. They simply worked, their hands steady, their voices calm, asking questions about allergies and pain levels, as if treating refugees from a dying empire was an ordinary occurrence. Perhaps for them it was. Commander Chen arrived as the last of the wounded were being transported to the medical bay. She was shorter than Vithsari had realized. The top of her head barely reached the high adjudicator's shoulder. But there was something in the way she moved, a coiled readiness, that made her presence feel larger than her physical form suggested.
High Adjudicator, Chen said, inclining her head slightly. Welcome to Waypoint Station 7. I apologize for the modest accommodations. We're primarily a monitoring and early warning post. Our facilities are limited. Your facilities have already saved lives that I could not protect, Vethsari replied. You have my gratitude. Chen's expression softened slightly. It was the first emotional response Vethsari had observed in her. Perhaps we could speak somewhere more comfortable. There's much I need to understand about your situation. And much you wish to know about the Vorn.
Yes, Chen did not deny it. The more we know, the better we can help you.
Help. The word felt strange to Vethsari. For 11,000 years, the Caliph Dominion had been the ones who offered help, or, more often, the ones who watched lesser species struggle without interference. To be on the receiving end of that word from a species she had once dismissed as insignificant.
Lead the way, Commander.
The room Chen led her to was small and functional. A table, 4 chairs, a viewport showing the stars. A human beverage steamed in a cup that Chen placed before her, something called coffee, she was told. Vethsari did not drink it, but she wrapped her hands around its warmth gratefully.
Tell me about the Vorn, Chen said, settling into the chair across from her.
Vethsari stared into the dark liquid. Where to begin? They came from beyond the galactic rim, she said slowly. No one knows where they originated. No one knows how long they traveled before they reached the outer territories. We only know what they did when they arrived.
And what was that?
They consumed. The word hung in the air between them. The first system they encountered was Yethvor, a mining colony. 4 million Caliph lived there. Vethsari's voice remained steady through practice, through the numbness that had settled over her heart. The distress signal lasted for 3 hours, then silence. When our response fleet arrived, they found nothing, no structures, no ships, no bodies, just emptiness, as if the colony had never existed. Chen listened without interruption. Her eyes never left Vethsari's face. We did not understand what we were dealing with. Not at first. The Dominion had never faced a true existential threat. We had subjugated rivals, absorbed lesser empires, weathered rebellions and plagues and natural disasters. We believed ourselves untouchable. How long ago did this begin? 3 months. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. It was the first sign of surprise she had shown. 3 months, she repeated, and in that time, the Vorn have consumed 47 systems. 62 billion Caliph are dead or missing. Our fleet, which once numbered over 12,000 capital vessels, has been reduced to less than 200. Our homeworld. Vethsari's voice finally cracked. She pressed a hand to her mouth, forcing the grief back down. Our homeworld fell 11 days ago. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. Chen simply waited, her presence steady, giving Vethsari the space to collect herself. I'm sorry, the human said finally. I cannot imagine what that loss feels like.
No, you cannot. The words were not meant as an insult. They were simply truth. Your species has never known anything like this. You cannot comprehend what it means to watch 11,000 years of history become meaningless in the span of a single season."
Shen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle.
"You're right that we haven't experienced what you're going through, but I wouldn't say we can't comprehend loss." She paused. "Humanity has come close to extinction more than once. We've destroyed ourselves in wars. We've nearly consumed our own world. We've faced plagues that killed more than we could count." A faint, sad smile crossed her face. "We are very good at surviving things that should have killed us."
Vasari studied the human's face. There was no boast in those words, no pride, only a quiet statement of fact, delivered with the weariness of one who had studied their species' history and found it sobering rather than glorious.
"The Vorn Pursuit Force," Chen said, shifting the topic. "How large is it?"
3 cruisers, 1 dreadnought, enough to destroy your station 100 times over.
Chen nodded as if this was expected. "And they're 12 hours out?"
Perhaps less. All right. Chen stood, her movements unhurried. "I need to make some calls. You should rest. There are quarters prepared for you." Vasari blinked. "Rest? Commander, a Vorn strike force is hours away. They will not stop at our vessel. They will consume this station, your people, everything."
"Yes, they might try." The calm in Chen's voice was infuriating. Vasari rose to her feet, exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "You do not understand. The Vorn cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be fought. Every engagement our forces attempted ended in annihilation. Your station has what? A few hundred personnel? A handful of defense weapons? You will be dead before you even understand what is killing you."
Chen regarded her steadily, that patient, measuring gaze again.
High Adjudicator, with respect, you don't know what we have.
"Then tell me, show me, give me one reason to believe that your species can do what mine could not."
Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and produced a small device, a communication unit. She pressed a button.
"Control, this is Chen. Begin Lighthouse Protocol. Authorization, Chen 77 Whiskey." A voice responded, crisp and professional. "Acknowledged, Commander. Lighthouse Protocol initiated. Alerting Regional Command. Estimated response time." "Unknown threat. Probable Vorn incursion. Recommend full deployment."
"Understood. Flash traffic initiated. Network is lighting up."
Chen pocketed the device and met Vasari's eyes.
"Rest, High Adjudicator. You've done everything you can. Let us take it from here."
Vasari did not rest.
Instead, she wandered the station, her mind too fractured for sleep. The human personnel she passed nodded politely, but did not stop her. No guards, no escorts. They simply let her move freely, as if she posed no threat, as if her presence was unremarkable.
She found herself in an observation lounge, staring out at the stars. A young human sat nearby, a datapad in her lap. She looked up at Vasari's entrance and offered a small smile.
"Can't sleep either?"
Vasari hesitated, then lowered herself into a nearby chair. "My world is gone. My people are dying. Sleep feels like betrayal."
The young woman, barely more than a child by Caliph standards, perhaps 25 cycles, nodded slowly. "I understand. Not the specifics, but the feeling. When my grandfather died, I didn't sleep for a week. I thought if I stayed awake, somehow I could hold on to him longer."
And did it work?
No. The woman's smile was sad, but it felt necessary at the time.
They sat in silence for a while. The stars turned slowly outside the viewport, indifferent to the conversation of mortals.
May I ask you something? Vethsari said finally.
Of course. How does your species remain so calm? A force is coming that has destroyed an empire that lasted 11,000 years. Your commander spoke of making calls, of protocols, but I have seen no panic, no fear, not even surprise. Vethsari turned to face the young woman. Are you ignorant of the danger, or do you simply not care if you die?
The woman considered the question seriously. Neither, I think. We're aware. We're always aware. But panic doesn't help anyone survive. It just makes the dying harder. She paused. And I suppose we've learned that there's always something that wants to kill us. The universe doesn't care about our survival. It never has. So we have to care for ourselves.
That is not an answer.
No, it is. The woman's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Vethsari saw something ancient behind them, something forged in suffering and hardened by generations of refusing to submit. We're afraid, High Adjudicator. We're always afraid. But we've learned that fear is just information. It tells us what matters, what we need to protect. She smiled slightly. And we've gotten very good at protecting what matters. Before Vethsari could respond, an alarm began to sound. Not the panicked shriek she expected, but a low, steady tone, a call to attention rather than a warning of death. The woman rose smoothly, tucking her datapad under her arm. That's the general quarters alert. You should probably head back to Commander Chen. Things are about to get busy. She left without hurrying. Vethsari sat alone for a moment, the alarm thrumming through the station's bones. Then she stood and followed. The command center was transformed. Where before it had seemed quiet, even sleepy, it now hummed with focused activity. Personnel moved between stations with practiced precision. Holographic displays flickered with data streams. And at the center of it all, Commander Chen stood like a stone in a river, calm amid the flow.
High Adjudicator, Chen acknowledged as Vethsari entered. Good timing. You'll want to see this. She gestured to the main display.
Vethsari approached, her heart's pounding. The display showed the region of space around the station, a tactical map she had seen 1,000 times in Dominion war rooms. But what she saw on this map made her stop breathing. Ships. Dozens of them, hundreds, emerging from fold space at the edges of the system, their signatures appearing on the display like stars igniting in the darkness. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, a fleet vast enough to give even the Dominion pause. What? Vethsari's voice failed her. Regional response, Chen said calmly. First wave. The others are en route. Others? Chen touched a control. The tactical display expanded, showing not just this system, but the entire sector. And Vethsari watched, speechless, as more signatures appeared, more fleets, more ships. A tide of vessels converging from every direction, summoned by a single protocol, responding with a speed and coordination that should not have been possible. How many? She managed. For this sector? Approximately 1,500 capital vessels with proportional support craft. Chen glanced at her. The Vorn pursuit force you described, 3 cruisers and a dreadnought, will arrive to find itself significantly outnumbered. But how? Your species is young. Your territory is small. Where did this come from? Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft.
We learned to hide what we could do, High Adjudicator. It was safer that way. The galaxy is full of ancient empires that look at young species and see threats to eliminate or resources to exploit. So we showed them what they expected to see. A small, fractured, unremarkable civilization. Too weak to threaten anyone, too insignificant to bother with.
You deceived everyone.
We survived.
Vethsari stared at the display, watching the impossible fleet continue to assemble. Her mind raced, trying to reconcile what she was seeing with everything she had believed about humanity. 200 years, she said slowly. When we surveyed your species, you had barely mastered interstellar travel. We had mastered enough to know we weren't ready to be seen. Chen's smile was thin. So we made sure you only saw what we wanted you to see.
And the quarantine we imposed protected us while we grew, gave us time to prepare. We appreciated that, actually, though the motivation wasn't exactly charitable. Vethsari felt something shift inside her. Not just shock, not just awe, something deeper, a fundamental restructuring of her understanding of the universe. The Kaolith Dominion had believed itself the apex of galactic civilization. They had looked at humanity and seen children stumbling in the dark. They had drawn borders and turned away, confident that the young species would either mature into acceptable subjects or destroy themselves. Instead, humanity had grown in the shadows, patient, quiet, waiting. And now, when an ancient empire came begging for help, they had the power to respond. "Why help us?" Vethsari asked. "We ignored you, dismissed you, left you to quarantine like a species that needed to be contained?" Chen finished. "Yes, we know." She met Vethsari's eyes, and there was no malice in her gaze, no satisfaction, only something that looked almost like understanding. "But you're here now. You came to us when you had nowhere else to go. That matters."
It does?
"It means you trusted us, even when you had no reason to. That's not nothing, High Adjudicator. That's the beginning of something better."
The Vorn arrived 6 hours later.
They emerged from fold space at the system's edge, their ships black against the stars, angular and wrong in a way that hurt to look at directly. Even on the tactical display, their presence felt like a wound in reality.
Vethsari watched from the command center, her claws digging into her palms. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to put as much distance as possible between herself and those vessels of consumption. But she did not move.
Because the human fleet was already there.
1,500 vessels against 4. The numbers should have been laughable, but Vethsari had seen the Vorn tear through fleets 10 times that size. Numbers meant nothing against an enemy that could absorb weapon fire, adapt to any attack, consume ships and crews as fuel for its advance. "All units hold position," Chen commanded. "Let them come to us." The Vorn fleet did not hesitate. They accelerated toward the human formation, their drives flaring with stolen energy. No communication, no demands, just the relentless approach of hunters who had never known prey they could not catch. "Energy signatures rising on the dreadnought," one of the operators reported. "Primary weapon charging." Chen nodded. "Wait for it?" Vethsari wanted to scream at her. The Vorn dreadnought's main weapon could crack planets. If it fired on the fleet, weapon discharge in 10 seconds. "All units, initiate Cascade Protocol." What happened next defied everything Vethsari knew about space warfare. The human fleet moved, not scattered, not defensively, but in perfect coordinated patterns, ships shifting position with a precision that should have been impossible. They wove between each other, creating channels and corridors, opening lines of fire while never presenting static targets.
The Vorn dreadnought fired.
A beam of consuming darkness lanced across space, and found nothing. The human ships had anticipated the angle, had already moved, the beam passing through empty space where a cruiser had been moments before.
And then the humans returned fire.
Not with conventional weapons, not with missiles or plasma or kinetics. Vezsari did not understand what she was seeing. Ripples in space-time, gravitational anomalies that bent the light around them, points of absolute cold that sucked the energy from anything they touched. The first Vorn cruiser came apart.
Not destroyed. Unmade. The forces acting upon it were so precise, so overwhelming that the vessel simply ceased to exist as a coherent structure. One moment it was there, the next it was debris and exotic particles scattering into the void.
First kill confirmed, an operator said. Moving to second target. Vezsari stared. The Vorn, the species that had consumed 62 billion Caliph, that had ended 11,000 years of empire, that had proven invincible against every weapon her people could devise, were dying.
The human fleet was killing them.
And they were doing it easily. The second cruiser tried to evade, tried being the operative word. Human vessels bracketed it from multiple angles, their movements coordinated through some network Vezsari could not perceive. They herded it, contained it, stripped away its options one by one until it had nowhere to run.
When they fired, the cruiser died just as quickly as the first.
High Adjudicator, Chen said quietly. You might want to see this.
She pointed to a secondary display. More signatures were appearing at the system's edge. Vezsari's hearts lurched. More Vorn.
No.
These signatures were human. More fleets were arriving. The second wave Chen had mentioned, and the third and the fourth. Ships by the thousands emerging from fold space with the steady rhythm of a heartbeat. They spread across the system in layered formations, each wave reinforcing the last, building a wall of steel and fire that no force in the galaxy could breach.
My God, Vezsari whispered. The galactic common phrase felt strange on her tongue, borrowed from the species now demonstrating power beyond her comprehension.
The full response takes time to mobilize, Chen explained. What you saw initially was just the rapid reaction force, the units stationed closest to the incursion point. She gestured to the growing fleet. This is the proper response.
How many? For a confirmed Vorn incursion? All of them.
Vezsari did not understand. All of them?
Chen met her eyes. Every ship, every fleet, every vessel we can bring to bear. When something threatens human space, High Adjudicator, we don't respond proportionally. We respond completely.
The Vorn dreadnought was alone now, its cruiser escorts destroyed. It fired again and again, that terrible consuming beam lashing out at the human fleet. But the humans had learned its patterns, anticipated its attacks. They danced around its fury like water around stone.
And then they closed in. Vezsari watched as thousands of vessels converged on a single target. Not recklessly, precisely. Surgical strikes that peeled away the dreadnought's defenses layer by layer. They did not seek to overpower it. They sought to understand it, to find its weaknesses, to dismantle it with the careful patience of surgeons rather than the brutality of soldiers. It took 7 minutes.
7 minutes from first contact to final destruction. The Vorn Dreadnought, a ship that had consumed worlds, that had ended civilizations, that had made the mighty Calith Dominion flee in terror, died in 7 minutes. And then there was silence. The tactical display showed clear space. Debris clouds where the Vorn vessels had been, and surrounding them, the human fleet. Vast, patient, waiting. Chen released the slow breath. Threat neutralized. All units, hold position. Begin search and recovery operations. Vethsari realized she was trembling, not from fear, not anymore, from something she could not name. Awe, perhaps, or revelation, the understanding that everything she had believed about the universe was wrong. "You destroyed them," she said, "in minutes. You destroyed what we could not stop in months."
Chen nodded slowly. We did.
How? How is this possible? You had 200 years. We had 11,000. How can you possess such power? Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy. Because we had to. I do not understand. No, I suppose you wouldn't. Chen turned to face her fully. The Calith Dominion grew powerful because your world was kind, your star was stable, your evolution was gentle. You had time to develop, to explore, to expand. You became dominant because nothing challenged you seriously enough to force adaptation. And humanity? Our world tried to kill us. Constantly. We evolved fighting for survival against predators, against disease, against climate, against each other. We learned that mercy was a luxury and complacency was death. And when we finally reached the stars, you found new things trying to kill you. We found a universe that looked at young species as prey. Chen's smile was thin and cold. So we became the thing that could not be preyed upon. We studied every threat. We adapted to every danger. We built our civilization not on conquest or culture, but on one simple principle: survival at any cost. Vethsari thought of the Dominion's history, the peaceful expansion, the gradual absorption of lesser species, the comfortable assumption that nothing could threaten their supremacy. They had grown powerful, yes, but they had never been tested, not truly, not until the Vorn. And when the test came, they had failed. There will be more of them, Vethsari said. The Vorn. This was only a pursuit force. There are thousands of their vessels beyond our borders. We know. They will come for you now. You have revealed yourselves. We know that too. And you are not afraid?
Chen smiled. It was the first genuine smile Vethsari had seen from her.
High Adjudicator, we are terrified. We have been terrified since the moment we learned we were not alone in the universe. But terror is not paralysis. Terror is motivation. She gestured to the fleet beyond the viewport. Everything you see out there was built on fear. Fear that something would come for us. Fear that we would not be ready. Fear that all the suffering our species had endured would mean nothing if we were wiped out by some ancient evil that viewed us as insignificant.
So you prepared? We prepared for everything. We build fleets in secret. We developed weapons that break the laws of physics. We created networks that can coordinate billions of minds in an instant. We did this because we always knew, that someday something terrible would come. Chen's eyes burned with quiet fire, and when it came, we intended to be ready. The days that followed were a blur of activity. More human fleets arrived, not to reinforce the system, but to stage for operations beyond. Vethsari learned that humanity was not simply responding to the Vorn threat. They were preparing to end it entirely. She watched from observation decks as supply vessels transferred impossible quantities of material. She saw shipyards embedded in hollowed asteroids, producing new vessels with an efficiency that made Dominion manufacturing look primitive. She listened to communication traffic that coordinated forces across light years with casual precision. And she began to understand. The humans had not simply been hiding, they had been building. For 2 centuries, behind their facade of insignificance, they had constructed the machinery of war on a scale that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every system in Terran space was a fortress. Every station was a forward operating base. Every citizen was a potential soldier linked to a network that could transform civilian industry into military production overnight. They have been waiting for something like the Vorn. And now that it was here, they were ready. On the 5th day, Chen found her in the observation lounge. "We've made contact with Caliph survivors," she said. "Scattered fleets hiding in various systems. We're coordinating evacuation to secure territory." Vethsari's hearts leaped. "How many?" "Approximately 800,000 so far. We're still searching." 800,000 out of 62 billion. Vethsari closed her eyes, grief and relief warring in her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank us yet." Chen sat beside her, her gaze distant. "We're moving against the Vorn in 48 hours. Full offensive. We're going to push into their territory and destroy them at their source." "Is that possible?" "We'll find out." Chen paused. "I wanted to ask you something." "Ask." "Your people, the Dominion. You were ancient, powerful, sophisticated. But when the Vorn came, you broke. Not just militarily, you shattered. Your government collapsed, your coordination failed, your people scattered in every direction." Chen turned to look at her. "Why?" The question was not an accusation, it was genuine curiosity. Vethsari considered her answer for a long time. "Because we had forgotten what it meant to struggle," she said finally. "We had been supreme for so long that we could not imagine anything else. When the Vorn proved our supremacy was an illusion, we had no framework for response. No ingrained instinct for survival against true existential threat. You'd never been prey." "We had never been prey." Chen nodded slowly. "Humanity has never been anything else. Not really. Even when we dominated our world, we knew it was temporary. Knew that something could always rise to challenge us. Maybe that's the difference. We've never been able to afford the illusion of permanent safety." "You have made a virtue of vulnerability." "We've made a weapon of survival." Chen smiled sadly. "Every hardship, every disaster, every war we fought against each other, it all taught us something. How to endure, how to adapt, how to come together when everything falls apart." She gestured vaguely at the fleet beyond the viewport. "This isn't just military strength. It's the culmination of a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to not die." Vethsari thought about this. Thought about her own species' history, with its gentle upward arc, its gradual accumulation of power, its comfortable certainty. And she thought about humanity's history, brutal, chaotic, soaked in blood and suffering and failure after failure. The Caliph had grown strong because they were never truly tested. Humanity had grown strong because they never stopped being tested. And now, when the greatest test of all arrived, only one of those species was prepared to meet it. On the seventh day, the human armada departed.
Vessari watched from the station's observation deck as the fleet moved past, an endless river of steel and purpose flowing toward the darkness where the Vorn awaited. Cruisers and dreadnoughts, carriers and support vessels, all moving in perfect coordination, all linked by the invisible network that made them more than the sum of their parts.
She counted until counting became meaningless. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands, more than the Kylith Dominion had possessed at the height of its power. And they were not afraid. The fleet did not move with the desperate urgency of refugees or the reckless aggression of conquerors. They moved with patience, with certainty, with the calm confidence of predators who knew their strength and needed no one to acknowledge it. Commander Chen found her as the last of the vessels cleared the system. "We'll maintain communication as long as possible," she said. "Updates will be relayed back when we can manage it."
You are going with them?
"I've been transferred to the command ship. This is too important to coordinate from a monitoring station." Chen paused. "I wanted to say goodbye. And to thank you." Vethsari blinked. "Thank me? For what?"
For coming to us, for trusting us even when you had every reason not to. Chan smiled slightly. You gave us something important. Not just intelligence about the Vorn, not just proof that they were real. You gave us purpose.
"I do not understand."
We've been preparing for centuries, building, training, waiting for the threat that would finally test us. But waiting is hard. Doubt creeps in. Maybe the threat isn't real. Maybe we're wasting our strength on paranoia. Chen shook her head. You reminded us why we prepared, why we sacrificed. You showed us that our fears were justified, and that gave us the courage to face them.
Vethsari looked at the human, this small, soft creature from an unremarkable world, this representative of a species that had spent 2 centuries pretending to be insignificant while building the power to challenge gods. "I thought we were saving you," she said quietly. "When I came here, I thought I was bringing warning of a threat you could not comprehend." "And now?" "Now I understand that you were saving us. You were always going to save us. We simply provided the excuse." Chen laughed, the first genuine laughter Vethsari had heard from her. "We're not heroes, High Adjudicator. We're survivors. Everything we're doing because the alternative is extinction. If we were braver, we might have revealed ourselves sooner, might have worked to prepare the galaxy for this threat. Instead, we hid, we watched, we let species like yours face the danger alone. You are facing it now. Because now we have no choice." Chen's expression grew serious. "The Vorn will not stop. They will consume everything in their path until nothing remains. Either we destroy them or they destroy everything. There is no middle ground."
And if you fail?
"Then at least we went down fighting." Chen extended her hand, a human gesture of farewell Vethsari had learned. "Goodbye, High Adjudicator. When this is over, I hope we can meet again." Vessari took the offered hand carefully, mindful of her claws. "Commander, may your ancestors walk with you, and may yours rest easy, knowing they did not die in vain." The war lasted 4 months. Vethsari remained at Waypoint Station 7, watching the reports come in from the front. Watching humanity wage a campaign unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. They did not fight like the Caliph had. They did not engage in grand fleet actions or desperate last stands. They fought like predators, patient, coordinated,
relentless. They probed the Vorn defenses, learned their patterns, adapted their tactics. They struck where the Vorn were weak and retreated when the Vorn were strong.
And slowly, inevitably, they pushed them back. System by system, the Vorn were driven from conquered space. Worlds that had been consumed were bypassed. There was nothing left to save. But surviving populations were evacuated, protected, integrated into human logistics networks. The scattered remnants of the Caliph fleet were reinforced, rearmed, given a place in the coalition that had formed around humanity's advance.
They lost ships. They lost thousands of ships. The reports did not hide this, did not minimize the cost. But for every vessel lost, 3 more emerged from the shipyards hidden throughout Terran space. Humanity's war machine was a living thing, feeding on its own destruction, growing stronger with every loss.
The Vorn had never encountered anything like it. They tried to adapt. They always adapted. It was how they had conquered every species before humanity. But the humans adapted faster. Every tactic the Vorn developed was countered within hours. Every weapon they deployed was analyzed and neutralized. Every advantage they exploited was taken from them. In the 3rd month, the humans breached the Vorn's core territories. In the 4th month, they reached the Vorn's homeworld. The final battle was not what Vethsari expected. There was no climactic confrontation, no desperate struggle between equal forces. The human fleet simply surrounded the Vorn system, established absolute control of every approach, and began a methodical elimination of every remaining Vorn vessel. It took 12 days. When it was over, the Vorn were extinct. Commander Chen returned to Waypoint Station 7 6 weeks after the war's end. She looked different, older somehow, despite the short time that had passed. There was a weight in her eyes that had not been there before, the weight of one who had seen too much death, who had made too many decisions that cost lives. But she was alive, and she was smiling. "High Adjudicator," she said, finding Vethsari in the observation lounge. "I believe I promised we would meet again." Vethsari rose, her old bones protesting the movement. "Commander, I am glad to see you survived." "Barely." Chen settled into a chair with a sigh. "We lost good people out there, more than I want to count. But we won. The Vorn are gone. They will never threaten anyone again." "And what now?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "Now we have to figure out what kind of galaxy we want to live in." "What do you mean?" "We hid for 2 centuries. We let the galaxy believe we were insignificant. But that pretense is over now. Everyone knows what we are, what we can do." Ten looked out at the stars. Every empire that ever looked at us with contempt now knows we could have destroyed them whenever we wanted. Every species that ever feared us was right to be afraid. "You could rule," Vethsari said quietly. "With the power you possess, you could dominate the galaxy as easily as you destroyed the Vorn." "We could." Chen's voice was soft. "And some of us will argue for exactly that. We've been the prey for so long, the temptation to become the predator is strong." "But you will not." "No." Chen turned to face her. "Because that would make us exactly what we've always feared. We didn't build our fleets to conquer. We built them to survive, to protect. If we use them for anything else, we become the threat we prepared against." Vethsari studied the human's face, saw the exhaustion there, the doubt, the weight of responsibility. But she also saw something else, something that had been there from the beginning, hidden beneath the calm and the competence. Compassion. You are remarkable creatures, Vethsari said. I spent 400 years believing my species was the pinnacle of galactic civilization, and now I understand that we were only sleeping. You were the ones who were awake.
We weren't awake, we were afraid. Chen shook her head. Fear kept us vigilant. Fear drove us to prepare. Fear made us who we are.
And yet you did not let fear make you cruel. Some of us did. Our history is full of cruelty. Chen's expression grew pensive. But we also learned something else. We learned that cruelty is expensive, that domination requires constant effort, that the easiest path to security is not subjugation, but community. The Caliph never understood this. Neither did we, for most of our history. We fought each other for resources, for territory, for ideology. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. Chen smiled slightly. But somewhere along the way we figured out that cooperation was more efficient than conflict, that lifting others up made us stronger than pushing them down. Vethsari thought about this, about the human fleet that had come to save her people, about the resources they had expended, the lives they had risked for the sake of species they had never met. "You helped us," she said slowly. "You could have let us die. You could have hidden behind your borders and waited for the Vorn to exhaust themselves against the galaxy's defenses. But you chose to fight." "Yes." "Why?" Chen was silent for a long moment. "Because we were you once," she said finally. "Small, frightened, facing threats we couldn't understand, let alone defeat. And no one came to help us. No one reached down and said, 'You are not alone.'" Her voice grew soft. "We survived because we had no choice, but we always wondered what it would have been like if someone had helped, if someone had seen our struggle and chosen to stand with us." She looked at Vethsari with eyes that held centuries of suffering and hope. "We couldn't change our past, but we could decide what kind of future we wanted to build. And in that future, no species faces extinction alone." 1 year later, the Galactic Council convened for the first time. Representatives from 17 species gathered in a station built jointly by human and Caliph engineers, a symbol of cooperation, a promise of something new. Vethsari attended as the senior representative of the Caliph remnant, fewer than 2 million survivors now, scattered across a dozen worlds, their ancient empire reduced to memories and refugees. She should have felt shame at how far her people had fallen. Instead, she felt hope. The council chamber was circular, seats arranged in concentric rings so that no species occupied a position of authority over any other. At the center stood a single podium, empty now but waiting for whoever chose to speak. Humanity's representative was a young man named David Okonkwo. He approached the podium with the quiet confidence Vethsari had come to associate with his species. "Distinguished representatives," he began. "1 year ago, the galaxy faced extinction. The Vorn came for all of us. Some fell before them, others fled. In the end, it was only through unity that we survived." He paused, looking around the chamber. "Humanity did not win this war. We all did. The Caliph, who warned us. The Threxian Collective, who shared their intelligence. The Morthani Confederation, who sheltered refugees. Every species that chose to stand together instead of dying alone." The representatives listened in silence. Vethsari saw their faces, skepticism on some, hope on others, fear on more than a few. They were all thinking the same thing. Humanity had the power to dominate them all. What guarantee did they have that the humans would not use it? Okonkwo seemed to sense the unspoken question. "I know what many of you are thinking," he said. "We have seen humanity's strength. We know what your fleets can do. How can we trust that you will not use that power against us?"
He smiled slightly.
"The truth is, you can't. Trust is not given, it is built. And it is built through actions, not words." He gestured to the chamber around them. "This council is not a gift from humanity. It is an opportunity we are offering ourselves. A chance to create something that has never existed before. A galaxy united by choice, not by conquest." "And if we refuse?" asked one of the representatives, a Threxian, if Vethsari remembered correctly. "What then? Will humanity destroy us as you destroyed the Vorn?" "No." Okonkwo's voice was firm. "We will do nothing. You are free to reject this council, to return to your own territories, to continue as you always have. We will not compel anyone to join us."
Then what purpose does this serve?
"It serves the purpose of tomorrow." Okonkwo leaned forward. "The Vorn are gone, but the universe is vast and we are small. Someday another threat will emerge, something we cannot imagine, something that will test all of us. When that day comes, I want us to be ready, together." He stepped back from the podium. "We did not build our fleets to rule the galaxy. We built them because we were afraid. And now I am offering to share that fear with you, to let you help us prepare for whatever comes next." He spread his hands. "Not because we need you, but because we believe we are stronger together than we are apart." The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, Vethari rose. Every eye turned to her, the ancient Caliph, the representative of a fallen empire, the one who had first brought warning of the Vorn to human space. "I have lived for over 4 centuries," she said, her voice steady despite her age. "I have witnessed the rise and fall of powers, the birth and death of civilizations. And in all that time, I have never encountered a species like humanity." She looked at Okonkwo, then at the human delegation behind him. "They came to our aid when they owed us nothing. They fought our war when they could have hidden. They sacrificed their children to protect peoples they had never met." She turned to face the council fully. "If there is any species in this galaxy worthy of trust, it is them. Not because they are powerful, but because they are kind." Silence stretched for a long moment. Then the Threxian representative stood. "The collective will join this council." One by one, the others followed. That night, after the council adjourned, Vethsari found herself on the station's observation deck. She was not alone. Commander Chen, Admiral Chen now, though she claimed to hate the title, stood at the viewport, watching the stars. "You spoke well today," Chen said without turning. "I spoke the truth." "Did you?" Chen's voice was soft. "We are not kind, High Adjudicator. We are desperate and afraid and deeply, fundamentally broken. We fight because we cannot imagine any other way to survive. We help because we have learned that isolation is death. And yet the result is kindness. The result is survival." Chen finally turned to face her. "We are not heroes. We are not saviors. We are just a species that has been broken so many times that we have learned how to put ourselves back together." Vethsari studied the human's face, saw the scars there, not physical but visible nonetheless, the weight of command, the memory of lives lost, the exhaustion of one who had carried too much for too long. "You are more than you believe yourselves to be," she said quietly. "I have watched you, Admiral, studied your species, your history, your nature, and I have come to understand something."
What is that?
The universe is cruel. It does not care whether we live or die. It offers no protection, no mercy, no hope. Vetsari stepped closer. "But you have created hope where none existed. You have built mercy into the structure of your civilization. You have looked at a universe that offered you nothing and decided to offer everything in return." Chen said nothing. "That is not desperation," Vetsari continued. "That is not fear. That is love. Love for your children, for your future, for the possibility of something better." She placed a hand on Chen's shoulder, a human gesture she had learned. "You may not see it in yourselves, but those of us who have been saved by you, we see it clearly." Chen was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Do you know why no Vorn ship ever returned from Terran space?" Vetsari shook her head. "They crossed our territory once, 200 years ago. A scout fleet probing the galaxy for resources. They saw our worlds, our stations, our ships, and they saw something they had never encountered before." "What?"
Chen met her eyes.
"A species willing to die for each other." She turned back to the viewport. "The Vorn consumed by absorbing, by taking. They fed on isolation, on fear, on the fragmentation of prey species. But when they tried to consume us, they found something different. They found minds linked by love, communities bound by sacrifice, a species that would rather destroy itself than let any of its members be taken alone." "They could not consume what was freely given." "No, they couldn't." Chen's voice was heavy. "We lost ships that day, thousands of lives. But when the battle was over, the Vorn scout fleet was gone. Every ship, every vessel. They touched our space and never returned." Vetsari remembered the title of the old intelligence report she had read, back when her people still had an empire. "The empire crossed Terran space. No ship returned." She had always assumed it referred to some natural phenomenon, some spatial anomaly that destroyed the Vorn scouts. She had never imagined the truth. The Vorn had found something they could not defeat. Not weapons, not fleets, not technology. Love. "You are the galaxy's guardians," Vetsari said softly. "You always were. We were simply too blind to see it." Chen shook her head. "We are not guardians. We are survivors. The only difference is that we have decided to help others survive too." "And is that not what a guardian does?" Chen had no answer. They stood together in silence, watching the stars turn. And somewhere in the void, the collected fleets of 17 species began their work, building the future that humanity had dreamed of for centuries. A galaxy where no one faced extinction alone. A galaxy where fear was answered with unity. A galaxy where the species that had once been prey had become the protectors of all. The stars did not remember. But those who lived among them would train yourself as an elite HFY Sci-Fi storyteller. Write a single continuous HFY science fiction story of approximately 40,000 characters using the exact title The Empire crossed Terran space. No ship returned. Best HFY Stories. HFY Sci-Fi. The title must shape the entire narrative, tone, and payoff of the story, with the meaning of the title becoming fully clear only by the end. The story must begin quietly and cinematically, with a reflective, almost poetic opening about the stars, time, or history, creating a sense of cosmic scale before any conflict is revealed. Avoid action at the start. Build curiosity, mystery, and emotional tension immediately, so the audience feels compelled to keep listening. The narrative must follow a clear point of view, primarily from a non-human alien character belonging to an ancient, highly advanced civilization that has existed for thousands of years and once dismissed humanity as primitive, insignificant, or dangerous. This character must be named and emotionally developed, showing exhaustion, fear, regret, suppressed pride, and growing awe. The alien civilization must be facing a catastrophic collapse or extinction-level war, with losses revealed gradually through dialogue, memory, and observation. Fleets, worlds, and billions of lives must be lost, but never dumped all at once. Let the scale unfold naturally and emotionally. Humans must initially appear calm, restrained, and unimpressive on the surface. Their stations, ships, and behavior should feel functional rather than grand. Human characters should be polite, observant, emotionally intelligent, and controlled. They must never boast or explain their power directly. Their strength should feel unsettling because it is quiet. The HFY reveal must be a slow burn. Humanity's true nature should emerge through adaptability, strategic thinking, unity, endurance, and an almost frightening calm in the face of annihilation. Their history of hardship and survival must quietly explain why they are different. As the story progresses, show humans preparing, mobilizing, or responding on a scale that shocks the ancient alien civilization, not through spectacle, but through coordination, inevitability, and confidence. The alien POV character should gradually realize that humanity was never weak, only restrained. The final third of the story must deliver a powerful HFY payoff that feels earned. Humanity's response should be overwhelming, precise, and unstoppable, fulfilling the promise of the title. The alien POV character must experience awe, fear, humility, and understanding as the balance of power irrevocably shifts. And with a strong emotional conclusion, not just victory. The final lines should leave the audience with chills, reinforcing themes of humility, endurance, empathy, and the terrifying strength of a species forged by struggle. Do not include bullet points, section headers, explanations, summaries, or author commentary. Do not rush pacing.